Found out my husband was sleeping with my younger sister 3 days before my mother's funeral. Not because they confessed, but because I heard them laughing about me through a half-open hotel door while I stood outside, holding the dress I planned to bury my mother in. And what hurt the most wasn't the affair. It was hearing my sister say, "Once she signs the papers, the house is ours." The house. The same house my father left to me before he died. The same house my husband believed belonged to both of us. He was wrong. And before this story ends, both of them would lose far more than they ever imagined. But before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. My name is Eleanor Whitmore. I was 39 years old when my entire life cracked open in the lobby of a downtown Chicago hotel. I wasn't supposed to be there that afternoon. The funeral director had called saying my mother's burial dress was ready earlier than expected, and I decided to pick it up myself. My husband, Richard, told me he was attending a business conference across town. My younger sister, Vanessa, claimed she was home with a migraine. Both of them lied. I remember standing outside room 814 with the garment bag folded over my arm when I heard laughter inside. Vanessa's laugh, then Richard's voice. Low, relaxed, familiar. My stomach dropped before my mind even caught up. And then I heard the sentence that changed everything. She'll sign after the funeral. She's too emotional to notice anything. They laughed again. I stopped breathing. My mother had died 4 days earlier after a long battle with Parkinson's disease. For almost 6 years, I was her primary caregiver. Not Vanessa. Not Richard. Me. I cooked her meals, bathed her, sat beside her hospital bed through nights that smelled like antiseptic and heartbreak. Meanwhile, Vanessa floated through life untouched. Beautiful, charming, selfish. The kind of woman who borrowed money wearing perfume that cost more than your grocery bill. And Richard was the man I spent 14 years loving. Or at least I thought I did. We met when we were both broke. I helped him build his accounting business from our tiny apartment kitchen while raising our son. I skipped vacations, worked extra shifts, sold my jewelry once so he could make payroll during a difficult year. And somewhere along the way, I became invisible, not unloved, useful. There's a difference. And women my age understand that difference better than anyone. Didn't confront them immediately. That's what they expected. Instead, I listened. Vanessa asked, "So when do we tell her?" Richard laughed softly. "After the property transfer clears." Property transfer. My blood ran cold. Because suddenly I understood why Richard had been pushing me for weeks to simplify the estate paperwork. He thought my mother's death had left me distracted enough to sign anything. But my father taught me something important before he died. Never sign documents you haven't read twice. Especially when money makes people impatient. That night, while Richard slept beside me, pretending to be exhausted from his fake conference, I opened the folder he'd left on his desk. And that's when I realized my husband wasn't just cheating on me. He was trying to steal everything. The documents transferred ownership of our family home into a shared trust controlled by Richard. But here's what neither Richard nor Vanessa knew. The house had never legally belonged to him. My father placed the property entirely in my name 15 years earlier through a protected inheritance agreement. Richard couldn't touch it, not without my signature, and he was desperate to get it. That desperation became my advantage. So I pretended. I smiled through funeral dinners, held Vanessa's hand while she fake cried beside my mother's casket. I kissed Richard goodnight, and secretly, I hired an attorney. Not just any attorney. Margaret Bellamy, a woman with silver hair, razor-sharp eyes, and a reputation for dismantling dishonest men in courtrooms across Illinois. After reviewing everything, she looked at me calmly and said, "Eleanor, your husband is committing fraud." Hearing someone finally say it out loud made me shake. Not because I was weak, because I finally understood I wasn't crazy. Margaret told me not to confront them yet. Instead, she suggested something better. Evidence. Over the next 3 weeks, emails were copied, bank transfers traced, hotel receipts collected, phone records documented, and every discovery hurt worse than the last. The affair had lasted nearly 3 years. 3 years. Family vacations. Christmas dinners. My mother's hospital visits. All of it poisoned. But the deepest betrayal came from my son. Daniel knew. Not the financial scheme, but the affair. He admitted he'd discovered it months earlier and stayed silent because Richard convinced him. Your mother would fall apart if she knew. I didn't cry when he told me. I just felt tired. A kind of exhaustion no amount of sleep fixes. The reading of my mother's will took place on a rainy Thursday afternoon. Vanessa arrived wearing white. Richard sat beside her, confident, relaxed, certain they'd already won. Then Margaret entered the room, carrying 2 folders. And everything changed. First came the fraud evidence, then the affair documentation, then the financial records showing Richard secretly moved money into accounts connected to Vanessa. The room went silent. Richard's face lost color so quickly it frightened me. Vanessa kept repeating, "This is insane." But Margaret wasn't finished. She slid one final document across the table. My father's inheritance protection agreement. The house belonged solely to me. Always had. Richard had spent months trying to steal property he never legally owned. And because of that attempt, he exposed himself to fraud charges. For the first time in 14 years, my husband looked afraid of me. The divorce took less than 5 months. Richard lost his business reputation. Vanessa disappeared to Arizona with debts she couldn't pay. And me? I stayed in the house. The same kitchen where I once cried quietly so nobody would hear me. Only now, the silence finally feels peaceful. Sometimes losing the people you trusted most isn't the tragedy. Sometimes it's the beginning of getting yourself back.